So back on to what I have decided to make a video of, that I have the standing of both the ear and the eye. Chapters 14 and 15, special senses, chapter 15, the ear. I've since learned that this is the auricle, and this is the external acoustic canal, the external auditory canal, or the acoustic meatus, and that's evident here. This is the auricle, and this is the external auditory canal, because there's a middle ear canal as well, which is, they'll break it down into 3 ears, but I wanted to get on here that the first 3 areas is the tympanic membrane, or the eardrum. And I kind of blew it up to look different in the book. Behind it, that's how it looks. And then it has the malleus, the incus, and the stapes, which are the 2 stapes down here. The incus is here behind the malleus. So the malleus pretty much carries, no, this is the incus here. The malleus is over here according to the book, and it goes down into the double area here. And so this is a whole other piece. This here is called the stapes. The stapes. Looks a little bit different. Yeah, that might be broken off. Might be broken off because I don't. That might be broken off from this side here, because this is this face here. Oh boy. Yeah. Oh. How it looks in real life, where those 2 stapes here, which I was referring to, are kind of connected. You bring it up here. Okay. So we have the auricle, the external acoustic meatus, or the auditory canal. They're both part of the outer ear, including with the tympanic, tympanic membrane, or the eardrum. The auricle, or the pinna, the external acoustic meatus, or the auditory canal. And they pretty much separate each other from here. Now, getting on to what is behind the eardrum and middle ear. So it breaks it down to external and middle ear. And the middle ear contains the oculus. So find the oculus. The oculus. The oculus malleus, incus, and stapes has several openings, is lined with mucous membranes. It transmits sound vibrations from the tympanic membrane to the cochlea, from the eardrum to the cochlea nerve. So it transmits sound from the eardrum or the tympanic membrane to the cochlea nerve. Transmits sound. Middle ear contains the oculus, which is this entire piece. That's called the oculus. The malleus, the incus, the malleus, incus, stapes, semicircular canals, that's these all of these circles here. This is a semicircular canal, that one is, and the one just under it, underneath it is. So let's grab this, and these are the semicircular canals, 1, 2, and 3. And the cochlea nerve is where, this is the inner ear, and this is where sound comes from behind. This is the behind the eardrum, which is up here. Okay, there it is. So we got the auricle. We have the external acoustic meatus, which is the auditory canal. It's either a meatus or a canal. And then it has the tympanic membrane, or the eardrum. And it transmits sound to the cochlea. And the cochlea is a part of the oculus, which is this entire part. And the oculus, or the middle ear, contains the oculus, malleus, incus, stapes, and it has several openings, and it's lined with mucous membranes. Equalizes internal air pressure on the tympanic membrane. So it equalizes air pressure onto the eardrum, the tympanous membrane, through the inner ear. Okay, the inner ear, the cochleus, the middle ear, inner ear. So there's the external ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear, which I was describing the middle ear instead of the inner ear. The inner ear, where the cochlea has located on the basilar membrane, is the organ of the choroid, containing hair cell sensory receptors for the sense of hearing. Well, the cochlea nerve is here, where let's clear up what is exactly part of the cochlea. Transmits sound vibrations from the tympanic membrane or the eardrum to the cochlea. So it doesn't go to the cochlea nerve sound, it goes to the cochlea itself, which is the circle part here. This is the cochlea, and this is the cochlea nerve. Okay. Middle ear equalizes air pressure onto the tympanic membrane. Okay. and it equalizes the external air pressure so air pressure comes in from the eardrum through the auditory canal, words or sound. And then the inner ear with the cochlea nerve, the cochlea located on the basilar membrane, is the organ of the corti containing the hair. The organ of the corti containing the hair. Okay, the corti. Let's see where the corti is. All right. The cochlea located on the basilar membrane is the organ of corti containing the hair cells. So the cochlea, they said, is the organ of corti. The organ of corti containing hair cell sensory receptors. There's hair cells in here. It means it's microbial if it's a cell for the sense of hearing. Located on the basilar membrane is the corti. The basilar membrane. Where is that? Okay. Anyways, contains hair cell sensory receptors for the sense of hearing. The vestibule contains the utricle and the saccule membranous pouches containing perilymph. Membranous pouches. Eustachian tubes. The Eustachian tube right here, so right behind the eardrum, where the processing of the sound through the eardrum or the tympanous membrane goes to the tympanic cavity to the cochlea. The cochlea. The vestibule, which possibly is this since it's not pointed out, equalizes external internal air pressure on the tympanic nerve. That could also be the Eustachian tube since it's not mentioned here. Contains the utricle and saccule membrane pouches containing perilymph. The utricle communicates with the semicircular canals and contains hair cells, sensory receptors connected to fibers from the 8th cranial nerve. These hair cells react to the force of gravity and movement of otoliths and are part of the sense of equilibrium or the state of balance. Semicircular canals. Contains nerve endings in the form of hair cells that note changes in the position of the head and report such movement to the brain through the fibers leading to the 8th cranial nerve. To the 8th cranial nerve, not canal. So it base of stapes. These are the stapes. the base of stapes in the oval window. That's this brace thing here. These are the stapes. Okay, so here it is again. Stapes, the base of stapes to the oval window. The incus and the malleus. I was trying to see where the utricle and the sacral is, but I'll catch up with that. All right. Eustachian tube, mastoidus. So that's kind of getting a better understanding of what the inner ear. Just read each. I think I kind of did read what I think the only place I'm not really clear on is the inner ear. Middle ear, let's read it all. External ear. The external ear is the appendage on the side of the head assisting of the auricle or the pinna. And the auricle and the external acoustic meatus or the auditory canal. The auricle pinna is the external portion of the ear that serves to protect the tympanic membrane or the TM eardrum, as well as to collect the direct sound waves through the ear canal to the eardrum. About 1 1/4 inches long, the canal contains modified sweat glands that secrete serum or earwax. Too much serum can block the sound transmission. Middle ear. The middle ear, separated from the external ear by the eardrum, is an air-filled cavity or the tympanic cavity. The tympanic cavity. Air-filled. The tympanic cavity is this area here. It's where the tympanic membrane is. This is the cavity of it. Carved out of the temporal bone. Carved out of the temporal bone. The temple is round up in here, so it's carved out of the temporal bone. The attic or the epitympanic recess of the middle ear is the portion lying above the tympanic cavity proper. It contains the head of the malleus. And the short limb of the incus. The tympanic cavity contains 3 specialized small bones. 1, 2, and 3. Or ocelus instrumental to the hearing process. These ocelus are the malleus hammer, the incus anvil, the malleus hammer, the incus anvil, and stapes, stirrups. Stapes. The hammer or the malleus, the incus of the anvil, and the stirrups. These bones technically transmit sound vibrations from the tympanic membrane to which the malleus is attached. Through the incus to the stapes, which attaches to a thin membrane. Through the incus to the stapes, which attaches to another membrane, to a thin membrane, which attaches to a thin membrane, which is probably there. Bone of the stapes of the oval window. And last but not least, okay, covering a small opening, the oval window that marks the beginning of the inner ear. That marks the beginning of the inner ear, which is the oval window. See where it says the oval window is, because that marks the beginning of the inner ear. This is the beginning of the inner ear. The base of the stapes in the oval window is between the stapes. These two are the stapes, marked by these here, and this is the beginning of the inner ear. Okay, let's read the inner ear now. The tympanic cavity connects to the throat and the nasal pharynx. The tympanic cavity. The tympanic cavity connects to the throat, which is here. It's got to be the throat. And the nasal cavity. That's got to go that way somewhere. Oh, or here maybe. The throat and the nasal cavity. We'll find out. Then the nasal pharynx via the Eustachian tube. That's this here, the Eustachian tube. Which is a narrow tube between the middle ear and the throat. And if you look upward, that's right behind the eardrum is the middle ear, and the throat gotta be there. I didn't sit down and use that for so many different ways. So we'll see. The ear-throat connection makes the ear susceptible to infection. The spread of infection from the throat along this membrane to the middle ear is called otitis media. Otitis media. And that's the spread of infection from the throat along this membrane to the middle ear. The continued spread of infection to one of the mastoid bones is called mastoiditis. The Eustachian tube functions to equalize air pressure on both sides of the eardrum. Normally, the walls of the tube are collapsed. Swallowing and chewing options open the tube to allow air in or out as needed for equalization. Equalize air pressure that the eardrum vibrates maximally when struck by sound waves. The inner ear. The inner ear consists of a membranous labyrinth or a maze-like network of canals located within the bony labyrinth. These structures are called labyrinths because of their complicated shapes. The bony labyrinth located in the temporal bone consists of the cochlear, vestibule, and semicircular canals. Within the bony labyrinth, but separate from it by pale fluid called perilymph, is the membranous labyrinth, filled with a fluid called endolymph. This membranous labyrinth contains the actual hearing cells, the hair cells of the organ of cochlea. The cochlea is a spiral-shaped bony structure containing the cochlear duct. It is so named because it resembles a snail shell. See figure 15.1. The spiral cavity of the bony cochlea is partitioned into three tube-like canals that run the entire length of the spiral. Two membranes form these tube-like areas. The basilar membrane forms the lower canal, or the scala tympani, and the vestibular membrane. Reisner membrane forms the upper channel, which is called the scala vestibuli. Between the two scala is a space, the cochlear duct, formed by the vestibular membrane on top and the basilar membrane as a floor. Located on the basilar membrane is the organ of Corti, containing hair cell sensory receptors for the sense of hearing. The fluid perilymph fills the scala vestibuli and scala tympani. A different fluid, endolymph, fills the cochlear duct. Alright, the process of hearing. In the process of hearing, sound waves are collected by the auricular pinna and directed through the external auditory canal to the tympanic membrane, the eardrum, causing it to vibrate. These vibrations move the three small bones of the middle ear, the malleus, incus, and stapes. The movement of the stapes at the oval window sets up pressure waves in the auditory fluids, perilymph and endolymph. The waves distort the basilar membrane and cause the vibration of the hair cells of the organ of Corti. The vibrations are picked up by the auditory nerve fibers that transmit an electric nerve signal to the cerebral cortex of the brain, where it is interpreted as sound. The path of sound vibrations is shown in figure 15.15.